It's a last-minute deal that preserves an open trade zone worth more than $1 trillion a year. The US and Canada late on Sunday agreed to the terms to reshape their 25-year-old trade agreement with Mexico.
Good day for Canada.
It's also a victory for US President Donald Trump, who compelled his Canadian and Mexican counterparts to accept more restrictive trade measures.
If you look at this agreement, we formed a great partnership with Mexico and with Canada. And I plan to sign the agreement by the end of November.
The deal, now renamed Usmca, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, is aimed at avoiding tariffs. It also settles a range of issues between the three countries. While it failed to resolve US tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium, it largely spares Canada and Mexico from any US auto tariffs. It also requires a higher proportion of auto parts to be made in high-wage areas, a rule aimed at shifting production jobs from Mexico. Canada also fought to preserve a trade dispute system that protects its lumber industry from US anti-dumping tariffs. That could come at the cost of Canadian dairy farmers. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau agreed to give American dairy farmers access to around 3.5% of Canada's $16 billion dairy market. The concession essentially raises quotas on the amount of US dairy that comes into the country. While the Canadian government has offered compensation, it may not be enough for the 220,000 families that depend on the dairy industry for their livelihoods. Liz Maddock, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now from TRT World's editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, who joins me now from Paris. Hi, Craig. So we now have the USMCA. It doesn't quite have the same ring as Nafta, but Donald Trump is chalking this one up as a victory. After all, he has succeeded in scrapping Nafta, at least in name. But how different is this new deal from the old one?
Well, there's only three kind of things that are different. As Liz pointed out, rules of origin, percentages on auto parts was 62.5%, going to go to 75%. Not a big deal. There's now a sunset clause. NAFTA was for perpetuity. This is for 16 years. And the U.S. can still have these so-called emergency tariffs for national security. The only other thing is that American dairy farmers now get to milk a few more American cows that they can sell to the Canadians in gallon containers, and the Canadians drink their milk, I believe, in liters, which is going to confuse the situation more. I'm telling you, this USMCA sounds more like a Village People song than a trade agreement.
Perhaps we can get the group to come up with a song for the deal. But Donald Trump had been railing about tariffs on US dairy imports, particularly saying that Canada was taxing them too much, that it was unfair, and perhaps ignoring the fact that Washington itself subsidises US dairy farmers, but I guess that's a whole other issue. But did Canada essentially give in to this demand just to get the deal through?
I read the trade agreement today. I don't see where anyone gave in on this, other than the Canadians said, yeah, okay, we'll drink more American milk if we can just bring this to an end, because the fact is that between 70 to 80% of all Canadian and Mexican exports go to the U.S. and vice versa. This beast, whatever you wanted to call it, falafel if you wanted to, needed to continue. It couldn't die. What Trump wanted here was to make Canada and Mexico America's enemy for a moment, agitate the masses, and then rebrand the agreement, and then claim he was responsible for getting America a better deal that would help him in the midterm elections. Is this a reality show or a sitcom? You decide. Sounds like to me it should be called Dancing with the Cows.
You mentioned the midterms. That's now the next big hurdle, I guess, because it could see the Democrats taking control of the House. This new deal has to be passed by the parliaments in all three countries. Do you think the shape of the House could cause a bit of a problem for this new deal?
No, I think this deal will pass. The whole genesis of this deal for Trump is he can tell the American electorate that he's done something else that he's promised. He's lowered taxes. He's slashed regulations. He's engineered a stock market boom. He's raised employment. He's making love with North Korea, he says. He's told the United Nations to go to hell, and he can now tell the American people that he's kept all of his election promises. How many of them will buy into it? What remains to be seen. But what he won't be telling them is that the key part of NAFTA, so-called Chapter 19, is alive and well with this new deal. Now, Chapter 19 that Trump wanted to dump allowed independent courts to adjudicate trade disputes between the three amigos. Trump wanted that out. He told his base that part, Chapter 19, was out the window. Well, guess what? Those courts remain alive and well and a key part of the framework of this agreement.
Interesting. Okay, Craig, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you, as always, for your analysis.